So with South Africa set to head to the local government elections in a matter of weeks, some analysts believe that the ANC has done little to prop up its waning authority. The party has moved from one major blunder to another, failing to pay its employees on time and also falling short of submitting all its candidate lists by last month's deadline. So what can we ascribe these shortcomings to? Let's unpack these developments now with political analyst Professor Susan Booysen, who joins us via our video link. And Prof, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for making time for us here on Newzroom Afrika. It was Dr. Ralph Mateka, who I'm sure you know as well, another political analyst, who says what is actually happening within the ANC is no tragedy. It just reflects the lifespan of a liberation movement. Is that how you see it?
To some extent, yes, there certainly is absolute truth in that, and I argue that myself. But so much is happening that is not necessarily so, that need not have been. That in the current period, at least within the ANC organizationally and politically, we see so much happening that is not necessarily part of a liberation movement cycle. When we look at something basic, essential, like nominating candidates fully across municipalities for elections, it goes without saying that that should just not have happened. It's within any power, former liberation party's power, former liberation movement or not. So, yes, and we see in this the waning of that authority of the ANC, because a party that doesn't get these basics right cannot possibly, credibly, ask the electorate, come out, I can do it, I can do things better. And just one very graphic illustration that we saw, that was in a recent, very reliable public opinion poll done by Afrobarometer, where they found that around 2/3 of South Africans are prepared to, let's say they are prepared to let elections go. Should there be any other authority in place that can deliver on basics such as jobs, housing, and security? And that is, it's not a new trend, but it's a very big strengthening of that trend that we saw in South Africa in the last 3 years. And these are all severe indictments on how government and governing party politics have been done.
You write in an article that I saw on the Daily Maverick that the ANC is in an era of popular disregard rather than an era of obedience and trust. First, unpack what you mean by that, but more importantly, do you think the ANC itself is aware of this?
Authority is such an essential part on being in government legitimately, to be accepted by the people of the country as that big power who can make rules and who can ask that rules be obeyed in that society. We can just think back of the July riots, uprising in South Africa, especially KwaZulu-Natal. There was no regard for rule of law, for legislation, to a large extent not for the authority of the South African Police Service. People went on looting, torching, destroying for days on end without fear of consequences. That is a huge lapse of authority. Whether the ANC itself is so aware of it, they certainly have seen it. They must also be aware that even when SAPS and SANDF came in and helped to restore order, it was largely communities who were protecting their access to groceries, to medicines, to pay out security grants and so on, who came to their rescue and said up to this point and no further. And there is a government there that has lost much. No, it's not altogether a collapse, but it has lost much of that authority or ability to tell citizens, these are the rules, you obey it.
There's also, of course, a lot of, concern about what the election going ahead might look like with the ANC not able to participate in this way, or at least with the ANC not able to participate because it's missing so many candidates in so many municipalities, 93 or so. So here's the question. Do you reckon that South Africans are ready to give the opposition a chance? And more importantly, Does that alternative stand a chance?
Such an important question, a billion-dollar question. Thank you, Ayanda. And we can say for sure that local elections have lower turnout rates than the national and provincial elections in South Africa, as many other places too. And that trend is likely to be strengthened. So fewer people are likely to participate in this election. But then many are also going to say there are opposition parties, flaws and all, and a few new ones, and a handful of independents and community parties who are possible alternatives. Many voters are actually going to say, let's go and vote for those and give them a chance. And in the process, it will be the ANC that's largely going to suffer because of these mishaps it's had, plain failings it's had in nomination of candidates, not fully nominating candidates in all other wards and PR lists across these 95 municipalities. And so I see a new type of politics gradually emerging and probably being helped along by this step. Because when a political party does not participate in other parties step into its space, and whether people participate in large numbers or not, new parties are going to take that seats, different parties are going to take those seats, proportions of votes, and it will be very difficult for the ANC in those particular places to step back into power, because once political parties get into power, they learn very quickly how to use power to strengthen their bases. We've seen that across South Africa. The ANC in earlier days, KwaZulu-Natal, used those power bases to encroach on their IFP support base, for example, and IFP never really got that back. That's just one illustration there. So these current processes and the ANC's failings in this election, in these nomination stakes, are definitely going to have a longer-term knock-off effect. And overall, it could very well also strengthen voter cynicism in elections in general, growing phenomenon in South Africa.
Absolutely. There are those who believe that even if the candidate list wasn't an issue, a nightmare, a headache for the ANC, the party is still facing many other, call it PR disasters in the lead up to these elections. Is it still possible for the party to pull itself out of this quagmire, or are we a little too late to ask that question?
It is probably a bit too late, but there is no doubt that electoral threat by opposition parties could very well help the ANC, push the ANC to pull its act together. And so much is going to be evident from this weekend's National Executive Committee meeting now taking place of the ANC, whether they could be sufficiently scared by the possible encroachment of opposition parties on their territory that they can actually decide to forgo their factionalism and forgo all those petty interests, and sometimes not so petty, minor, major criminal interests within the party, but to eliminate those and for the factions to pull together and do what would be good electorally and in terms of public image and credibility for the ANC. Perhaps it is a threat, as we see on the ANC's doorstep, of this current nature. That is what it takes for it to pull it together. But then we have seen, even without these types of threats, ANC in 1999 already in its National General Council meeting there, midterm meeting, had acknowledged that opportunism, criminality, reasons for joining the ANC that are not above board are affecting that party. And the ANC since 1999 has not been able to correct this. It would probably take more than the current threat to get it onto a better track, because the ANC could very well argue that it has, despite these setbacks, still got support, endorsement broadly of so much of the South African population that is so such a big part of the South African electorate that
Absolutely.
actually thinks that there is a possibility of improving things. They could believe that they can pull this through as well.
Right. I know we say this every single year, but it almost does feel that this really is the ANC's most important local government elections since our democracy. But thank you for your analysis. Let's hold it there for now. I really do appreciate it. If the elections go ahead, something tells me we'll be speaking to you very often in the weeks to come. So for now, political analyst Professor Susan Booysen, thanks very much indeed.